Hi, and welcome back to our class lecture on the French Revolution. And we're just going through the whole thing here. This is part 4, and this is where things get to become a little bit more violent. On our last lesson, we worked on part 3, which is looking at the division in the revolutionary leaders, and we went over the radicals and the fact that they want a much more radical shift in the revolution, more freedom, more violence, more support of the revolution, as opposed to the moderates who are in the center of this government, who are basically supporting the revolution. They want a few more changes, but not too many. And then the conservatives, mostly the bourgeois and the former nobles, people who are on the right wing, who are very happy with the limited monarchy that's in charge and are totally cool with the way things are. Then the emigres, who are outside of France, essentially, who want to kind of go back to the way things used to be. Well, that's not going to happen as things become more and more violent. So we're going to look at some violence today as we actually go to war. So other countries in Europe with monarchs are looking at France, and they are quite concerned about how France is progressing through this revolution. Louis has been stripped essentially of all his power and turned into a figurehead. And this is very troubling to the monarchs of Europe, and including Leopold II, the Holy Roman Emperor, as the other nations of Europe look to France's revolution as a threat to their own nations, because they're concerned that the ideas of the revolution is going to spread, and they want an end to this revolution, and they want to restore Louis XVI to power. If other nations are able to take their monarch's power away, well then what's to stop the people of their nation from doing the same thing to them? On top of this, the radical leaders of the revolution also want war. This is a revolution that they believe needs to spread across the continent and then eventually across the world. The radicals want war with other nations because that will give them an opportunity to bring the revolution to the people. Austria and Prussia are going to poke the bear, so to speak, here, and they are going to demand that the revolutionary leaders in France return Louis's power and put him back as an absolute monarch on the throne and restore all the power that they have stripped from him. Of course, that's going to agitate the radicals, and in April of 1792, the Legislative Assembly, with this now radical wing sort of becoming the loudest, most vocal supporters of this revolution, declare war on Austria and Prussia. And this is going to be a terrible, terrible, terrible idea, as the revolution is not prepared to go beyond its borders. It can barely feed itself. It doesn't have any money. The French army is poorly led. It's poorly equipped. They just don't have what it takes to go out and wage war. And this is kind of what the Austrians and Prussians were hoping for. The war goes badly for the Revolutionary Army, and the Prussians begin marching into France and marching on the city of Paris. The Queen, Marie Antoinette, is accused of sending information to the enemy, which could be the only reason why we're losing. Not that our army is not any good. And then the Prussians sort of make a tactical error of sorts. The Prussians say that they will they will destroy the city of Paris if the royal family is harmed, because all these rumors are going around, and the people of Paris are going to go get Marie Antoinette and make her pay for being a traitor. The Prussians say, hey, if you hurt her, we are going to destroy Paris. So, of course, if you tell the leaders of the revolution not to do something, they are absolutely going to do it. So on August the 10th, on August the 10th, 20,000 Parisians are going to attack the Tuileries Palace in Paris, which is where the royal family is living and has been living ever since the Women's March to Versailles. And they're going to slaughter the 900 Swiss Guard that are there to protect Louis, and they are going to arrest the royal family. So it's a much bloodier, bigger repeat of what happened in the Women's March when they went out to Versailles. You can see some images of that there. And this one where they grab the king and force him to wear the Phrygian cap of the revolution. And now, on top of the revolution taking place, on top of war with the Prussians and the Austrians and losing that war, more rumors and more fear are spreading across the country, especially in the city of Paris. Rumors are spreading that the royalists, now these are the people who are loyal to the king, would take control of Paris while the troops are out fighting with the Prussians. So there's a rumor of a betrayal that's about to take place, that while the soldiers of the revolution are out fighting the Prussians, that the city is sort of undefended and vulnerable to attack. that there is going to be sort of a coup, that these royalists are going to get out of prison and they're going to take up arms and they're going to put down the leaders of the revolution here in Paris while the troops are out fighting. This fear and rumor is kind of ridiculous. This just kind of would be very hard for them to do. So the solution to this problem, of course, is, well, let's just kill them, right? So this leads to what's known as the September Massacres, which take place for about 2 weeks in September of 1792. Here are your sans-culottes, your radical, violent, bloodthirsty, vocal supporters of this revolution. They are going to go out and going to go from prison to prison, killing over 1,000 people who are already locked up and not a threat to you whatsoever. But those rumors and that fear is important, and it drives the sans-culottes and the other radicals to go out and slaughter about 1,000 royalists who are imprisoned and definitely not a threat. So there are your September Massacres. And again, all of this is just leading us down the path that we were sort of on originally, which is just the abolition of the monarchy entirely. Up until this point, Louis has remained king. Up until this point, he is the monarch of France, but now, with all of this violence, this mistrust of the royals, this slaughter of the royalists and supporters of the king, it's fairly obvious that the revolution cannot have Louis around again or for any longer. So France is going to shift its government yet again. The Legislative Assembly calls for a new government. They are going to create what's called the National Convention. Now, this is going to be a pure republic where there will be no monarch at all. All the power will be in the hands of the people through their elected legislature. So we are going to depose Louis XVI. We are going to put him on trial, where, of course, he will be found guilty. And on January the 21st, 1793, Louis Capet, or Louis XVI, will be executed in the guillotine. Here are some images of Louis's execution, which is, of course, public in the guillotine, which is being implemented as a form of execution by the leaders of the revolution. And Louis's head is displayed for all to see. On January 20th, 1793, the National Convention condemned Louis XVI to death. His execution scheduled for the next day. They were very quick about the execution. Louis spent that evening saying goodbye to his wife and children. The following day dawned cold and wet. Louis arose at 5. At 8 o'clock, a guard of 1,200 horsemen arrived to escort the former king on a 2-hour carriage ride to his place of execution. Accompanying Louis at his invitation was a priest, Henry Essex Edgeworth, an Englishman living in France. Edgeworth recorded the event, and we join his narrative as he and the fated king enter the carriage to begin their journey. If you'd like to pause it here and read it, I would recommend that. It's pretty interesting and cool. I'm not going to read it to you guys, but feel free to check it out if you'd like to. So, the king has been executed. The king is dead. The king is no more. Well, what about the queen? Well, she's also going to face a similar fate, but not until the following year in October of 1793, where she will be placed on trial, and she will be also found guilty and sentenced to death. Now, her case is much different than the king's. Her treatment is also much different from the king's. While the king went to his execution in a carriage, a covered carriage, Marie Antoinette went to her execution in an open wagon. So, lots of different treatment of the king versus the queen. Her trial is also very different. She's accused of lots of things that she never did. It's super interesting. You should check it out. But that's going to wrap it up for part 4 of this lesson. We are going to pick up on part 5 as the war continues and things in France get actually even worse. So, check us out for that next lecture.